Uh, Hi, folks. Welcome to the Historical Fencing Guild's live stream channel. Pardon me if I sound a little out of it. I'm fighting some allergies, hence the slight delay. Well, folks, we got a lot to discuss this week, and we're going to get right into it. Please remember, of course, that the Historical Fencing Guild is funded entirely by my Amazon sales for things such as the Simple Sword, and by my Patreon, which I want to thank my patrons, the amazing Cindy Kep and Steve Augusto, for standing by me thick and thin through all this. I also want to thank Steve Clausen for being a supporter outside of that internet. Now, today's been an odd day, so bear with me if I seem less than my usual perky self. I'm going to try and keep upbeat because that's what you guys have come to know and want. And we have one viewer and no likes. That's okay, but don't be afraid of the like button. It's not for it's more scared of you than you are of it. All right, this week we're going to be discussing well, actually we have quite a bit to discuss. I want to go back into, because people keep coming at me about the proper sword length for a person. What is the right size? And some armoring questions have been discussed. What else came my way? Oh, there is a new video game on the market that intrigues me. I just found out last night about, so I need to look into it. But we're going to get the ball rolling with the kind of age-old Nick. What is the right sword? And I keep getting this message. What is the best sword? What is the right sword? And I keep trying to explain it. And I don't know if it's I have new viewers or if it's that, the concept seems a little simple. That's okay. The right sword a rapier of the blade should run from the length of your outstretched hand to the center line. So for a thrusting blade, you want no longer than this. Now, certain styles call for a longer than this proportion, chief among them for fencers being Spanish, because the weapon is as much a part and parcel as the methodology, because it's based on geometry. Whereas practically, I would say, greetings and salutations, Cindy. It's great to hear from you. This, which is just a bit short, but the grip nearly hits my center line, is a 30-inch blade. I'm a big fan of a sword living around the 30-inch line, and then a short sword, or what I consider a practical indoor capable sword, being about 24-inch, one-handed, so that you can manipulate it indoors. I know longtime viewers have heard this rant many times, new habits, so we're going to go. Now, this particular model is a bit more wall-hangery than some, but it's fairly sturdy. If I had a replacement, I'd do cutting tests. I may still do a cutting test. I will tell you, point of balance becomes a very important thing. Well, we're starting to get messages, which is good. No, that's nothing significant to what we're doing, so that's okay. All right, now, those who know me through Facebook, if you have any questions, comments, and you're not comfortable going through the public live chat, as always, the messenger through Facebook is active. I'm working on tweaking the Historical Fencing Guild public group thing. Unfortunately, the acronym HFG is related to an Arabic band of some sort or something like that, so I get a lot of miscommunications outside of the English-speaking audience. But you can. What I like about a weapon like this that locks into the hand is it gives you that nice A guard. It's not way out here, so you're not tangling it above you, and it gives you a very simple means of defense. You want the more limited your experience, the simpler the weapon you want. This is essentially a machete with a nice guard. Now, I love cutlasses. Cutlasses are great swords, but they are, at the end of the day, a machete, or very similar. They are practical tools. And I am currently in the market. See, what I am looking for, personally, is something more like my Bilbao, a sturdier, very short rapier platform. And no one seems to make it. And I do hate the no one makes it. Please take my, take my money, but nobody's making it. 1 second. Oh, the problem with living in the great middle of cropland is a couple times a year, different things decide to bloom and go nuts. And there is something at the end of July that absolutely adores destroying my sinuses. So, pardon if I sound nasal. And as always, I am taking requests. But, sorry, guys. So we have a mix of caffeine and pink knockout pill trying to balance out. So I'm a little spacey. But, okay, that being said, kind of pulling back into center. I'm, like again, if you're going two-handed, I think you don't want your weapon to go higher in total. Okay, you want the pommel to sit here, about the length of a bow, a Joe, not bow. I'm sorry, a Joe. So usually it's 4 foot long overall. So you may have something with 3 foot of blade and a foot of rigging if it's a hand and a half for a bastard sword, or you may go even 4.5 foot because obviously I am still on the shorter side as a male. I clock in right around 5 foot, between 5'7", 5'8", depending on the day. So I'm hoping that answers your question. We had a few more questions. Oh, yes. I was going to wait till it kicks in later, but there is a new game that's been made. It's called Hellish Quart, and I'm assuming it refers to the fourth position. But what it is it's a video game that they use motion capture of actual swordsmen in specific styles, historical styles, to make. From what I have seen of it, and literally I just got exposed to it, it looks fascinating because you can see stylistic matchups, and they all. It's really very strange for me as a Western martial artist to watch games and see how they fight, if they fight, and have it, you see it and go, that's a person. You know what I mean? That's done right. A lot of games just aren't done right. And please pardon me. Oh, God. I am a librarian, and I was cleaning and doing librarian things, which means dust. But, yes. I'm getting some commentary on some other stuff. I will be feeling better. I had some rough news hit me today on private front, and it reminded me that sometimes the best laid the best laid plans of mice and men. The road to heck is paved with good intentions. All that kind of came together, and I had to hit pretty much like a semi truck out of the blue. And I'm trying to work past that. So, like I said, it's been a very odd day. Being me, sometimes we are just forced to deal with the ramifications. But I am working on some things. Chiefly, I'm working on a section involving this guy. And I am trying to take a break and study in on the strong sword, as I'm in sort of the last minute lull before I deep dive back into my wonderful project for Luke Stone of Terraform Comics. And the reason was this: how do you fight? The question was posed: how do you fight with an axe? And I'm like, I'm sure you see lots of no. And they said, no, not a tomahawk, like an axe, like a like a lumberjack axe was how it was put to me. I went, okay, I think I can write that up a bit, because I think the axe is one of those weapons that is not appreciated from history. It, like the mace, is been exploded to fantastic proportions. What do I mean? When you say mace, to a lot of people, especially people who haven't, really studied history, they're going by movies, cartoons, whatever. Very often they see something that looks like, a ball of steel with spikes, and very Morning Star-ish. Stay back, I'm mace. The problem is something that's that big and that heavy would be very unwieldy. So real maces, actually, the heads were. I've seen some mace-headed canes. I've seen some historical examples where it's only roughly this big of a sort of knurled brass ball or a knurled iron ball, about the size of my little fist, which somehow Steve Clausen is laughing at me because his fist is about that big. Yeah, well, yes, you can't. John Miner just messaged, you fight an axe as a catch in Blosh, and you're right. One of my all-time favorites. I don't have a good synthetic mace handy, so we're going to turn this into a mace by inverting it. You catch the weapon, you bring the pain. This is a great two-handed combo, but please remember that this is actually surprisingly historically accurate, especially if you cut this part off. Why? Like, when you see axes discussed, they see these great broad axes, and I used to have one, and I really wish it had it locked, but, these great double-bitted bladed. The problem is, people don't realize that while the tools have changed, infantrymen haven't. What say you? You have to be able to reach out and do something a lot. And even a halberd, which is a really advanced form of axe, and one of my favorites, it's a very neat idea, is only going to be so heavy because you have to be able to handle it, as a reasonable person. Swing and miss and then bury the backswing into the opponent. Nothing wrong with that either. I am a big fan of second chance weaponry, and I'm a big fan of second chance body armor. And that's responding to a dear friend and friend of the channel, John Miner, saying swing and miss and bury the back in the opponent. And absolutely, the axe is but we live in a world where people think one-handed axe, and they depict one-handed axe. And what I prefer to think of is a two-handed axe. Because, a great axe was not that much longer than a regular axe. They would alternate roughly between think of a walking stick with an axe head and a short spear, but with an axe head on the end. Why? Because this is weight, this is leverage, and you have to be able to pull it back to do other things. And we have to, as martial artists, as students of history, we have to get past the false concept that period weaponry was heavy and slow and cumbersome. That's just not true. Now, right about now, John's laughing because he's talking about dragging the great sword behind him with the tip on the ground. Like some lost Silent Hill villain. Dodecahedron head. But in reality, they were light, they were fast, they were agile. The other thing is, a lot of times, they had to be able to forage for themselves. So why would you have a monotasker? Now, something like a great sword is just that. It's great, it's impressive, it does certain things very well. Oh, my allergies. But they're a pain to carry. And they're a pain to lug. So what you're going to find is people want things that work. And the modern tactical tomahawk, which is what this is basically based after. This is the trench hawk trainer. I get a lot of questions about it. To the best, he's like, John said, to my favorite is double bit bearded with a 2.5-foot handle. Okay, so this is about a 20-inch handle, so it would be about that long. John, I'm going to agree with you. That's heck on wheels. I would probably be more geared towards single bit just because I'm an old lumberjack myself. Yes, I'm a lumberjack, and I am okay. I have falled trees for money. I've also been a chimney sweep, for all that matters. But if there's a low-end job, I've probably done it. That being said, John is 6'4", and his hands are double sized, so that almost scales down to, in his hand, if this were double-bladed, it would be proportional or very close. Why is this sort of like so popular? And I even me, if we could get this probably single or a regular axe head, but the bearding is nice for the catch. And just give me about 6 inches more handle over here so that I can get that comfortable grip. Honest to gosh, what they call a boy's axe. It's about a 30-inch light axe. It usually has a 2.5-pound head. So it's a little bit bigger than a hatchet head, but not a full-size axe head. Single bit. It fits me incredibly well. And something like that is something I would consider a very comfortable fighting style. The other equivalent, and something I'm really thinking about doing, is making myself a hawk-headed walking stick. I may, in the future, either buy or purchase or craft a specific walking stick. So, a stick that's comfortable for me, that's probably a 36-inch handle, that flares on one end, narrower at the foot, and has a sliding tomahawk-style head up-wedged on there. I'm really thinking about making something like that, just as both a walking stick and then as a tool. I used to camp a whole lot. I don't really get to anymore due to the medical necessity of it's really hard to camp with a BiPAP. And that hangs on me a bit. The choices we make to survive sometimes come at a cost. And, sometimes you do the right thing and it comes at a cost, and you have to decide, is the juice worth the squeeze? And right now it is. I'm trying to get myself into a mentality and a physicality where I can take the next steps to get healthier and maybe even get off that. I don't know. But for the purpose of what I'm talking about, I am working on a section where I talk about fighting what I consider camp axe. And the reason is I found that style completely baffled, which feels awkward to take a ubiquitous tool and make a trainer out of something, that I've experienced with and I've used pretty much every day of my youth at one point, because it was either an axe or a splitting maul. I mean, I would never make a ubiquitous trainer out of a common everyday weapon. I've never done something like that. No, not at all, he said, holding up this. Now, I am also, while we're talking about this and a little off the axe, well, wait, I'm going to float that. We're going to just put this idea up here. I have it up. We'll remember it. My point being, as a thank you to my patrons, when I complete the section on my approach to axe fighting, that being two-handed survival, we'll call it survival axe, might be a good way of phrasing it. I'm going to throw a sort of advanced reader comment file up into the Historical Fencing Guild's Patreon. Now, I'm not sure when I'll get it up there. I'll probably throw a section on how to make, the training staff, and possibly even an intro to staff up there too. Now, all that will, with it as it comes together, become available for the populace. But I think I owe the people who are supporting me a little something extra. So I'm going to try to put that together for you guys. I take requests, and that's one important thing for the people who comment on this channel, pardon my fiddle, and the people who message me. If you want something discussed, hop on and ask. Hey, you know what? Thank you, John. Mine might take some slightly more elaborate things, because it's not just weight. It's John got off the CPAP, so I hope I can too. But I have to be on it enough and get healthy enough I can do something about it. And we basically, well, John knows about where I am, and it's been 107 heat index out here. We haven't been less than high 90s, 100 heat index for a long time, and the sun and heat are really my enemies. They make me very sick and very weak. So I'm fighting that to get in shape, but I want to, because when this is over, whether it's next month or next year, I want to be back in a form where I can really go back to teaching and working with the people who want to learn. And along that front, I want to put it out for you. Now, on my ever-growing to-do list, which I may just knock some of the items off today. Again, pardon me. God, I know I could have canceled the live stream because I don't feel terribly well, but you guys have met me, and that's not going to stop me. This is called dedication to you, my fans, dedication to the guild, and dedication to the ideals we can make things better. So, remembering what I put away. This, as I said in an earlier video, is what's called a hard trainer. Okay, a hard trainer, much like this, is something you use to learn the feel, the balance, to learn how to make a weapon go, and possibly impose in slow motion. But at some point, you have to use speed drills, and you have to train with friends that you don't actually want to harm necessarily. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I have very bad allergies, and unfortunately, with my condition, it affects my breathing, which means I don't sleep like I should, hence my slightly drained scenario and some stress off-channel stuff. So thank you for your support, and I do appreciate it. You guys really help me stay afloat in a world where I'm kind of stuck separate from everybody. This is the hard trainer. Now, this is the Hello Karambit, probably the most famous improvised trainer ever made. And this is a soft trainer. This means I can stab and slash and generally hurt, beat the P-mortal stuffings. My next plan is to make a similar style trainer for this, which would be a modern version of the Wibbly knife that Ren Contessa used to love. Now, this it will be a fast, and again, based along lines of a very common knife. Why? This is important to me because one, this is what I teach, this is what I love to do. Two, I watch a lot of channels related to what I do. I watch a lot of firearms channels. If you can't be an athlete, be an athletic support. I had to read that out loud, John, to realize what you just said to me. Thank you. Thank you. I've missed you, buddy. I really have. But, wow. Sorry, that derailed. Anyhow. If you're going to, that just completely derailed me for a second. You want to make a light trainer. And I watch a lot of channels. There we go. I had to find my train of thought. I watch a lot of channels about martial arts. I have favored channels. I have non-favored channels. I really like the ones that focus on disproving lovely term Bushido, which Bullshido, Bullshido. You know what I'm saying? I try not to swear much on my channel, but you should get the BS self-defense that's taught to a lot of people, that's taught that's requested by a lot of people, and the guys who overly compliant martial arts partners who make it look like you could just do all this stuff easily. These guys really rattle, and I despise them. Now there's another guy, so I watched these, and I saw there's a channel I've been watching, and I hate bashing channels by name, so I'm going to try not to bring their name up. But basically, they're talking about how to defend yourself if you don't have a gun. And this guy's rattling on against the effectiveness of knives, to the point he actually said, I'd rather have bare knuckles than a knife. And I'm sitting here, bull! Nope. If I have to defend myself randomly against somebody coming through my house, I would rather have a knife than not have a knife. I would rather have a gun than not have a gun. And I would rather have a crack team of crack team of commandos who were tried for a crime that they didn't commit, and in 1978 escaped to the Los Angeles underground, than not have those individuals. That being said, and yes, tongue in cheek, guys, we gotta have tongue in cheek. I hit the line of serious depression that I can deal with today, and I hit the line of emotional stuff that I can deal with today. I got some friends. Excuse me. Oh God. Who have been affected by COVID-19. I have some coworkers and things like that, and we got to fight through it. And a lot of our enemy is not just the virus. It's the enemy is the fear, it's the despair, it's that looming sense of doom that has pretty much permeated 2020. Yes, we have to be smart, and that may mean isolation. That means protection. But you have to be smart. But so anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing all over the place tonight. Watching this guy go on and on, I realized he was scared of knives. Genuinely scared of knives. He's a martial arts guy. He's like, an axe isn't going to turn you into, what did he call it? A level 4 barbarian. No, an axe or a hatchet won't turn you into a level 4 barbarian. But you know what? If you have a tool and you use it, and he even said, a carpenter is going to be able to do things with his hammer. Well, guess what? If you train with your tools, you will learn tools, how to defend yourself with them. And there's also, I realize there may be, I have put off doing the improvisational weapons course in a publical. Wow. Sleep detriment has hit 1,000, folks. A publical environment is publical. Uh, but I am rather requested to do the introduction to improvised weapons, and as soon as I can find the right setting, because I have to do this right, I have to be a bit more professional about it than I normally am, and the right phrased disclaimer, okay? Because I'm not going to be messing around. This is how you fence and have a good time. Let's go video. This will be, okay, the bad guys are here. What do you do? How do you do? So I'm also going to try to up the production value just a bit more than what I've been rocking. So that is actually in the works. I'm in discussion and negotiation, possibly even having a sponsor for that of some sort. We'll just have to see. And if I can put that together, I will do that. Because I think everybody, it is the right of every sentient to defend life, liberty, and family. I don't care. Now, I'm not saying go out looking for trouble, but I am saying have a plan for when trouble finds you. So that's in the works. Wow. I just rode that a bit. The next thing we got to discuss, I want to talk about is there's been a gap in armoring discussion. And I think part of the problem is people look at gear. And I realize we as Americans have been we are so accustomed to manufactured items. What do I mean? Okay. I have two fairly similar products here. Okay. This is a cold steel medieval buckler, I think is what they call it. Possibly buckler trainer. This is low cost and one of the best training aids, offhand tools on the market. You guys have seen me pull these frequently. They're running like $21 on Amazon. They've actually come way down. I think because a lot of people were switching to riot shields. But these are very effective. This is a buckler that was made by Dennis Yakus or Aidan McDougall, and it was given to me when I was a fencer in the FCA. Now, a lot of people will look at this, and obviously it is small. It could, a larger device could, but they're saying, well, this is better because it's production made. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if this is what you have access to, this is what you should use. We have to get past this mentality of if we don't have the perfect version, we should not do it, because that's not how the world works, and that's not how our parents' world worked, and it's certainly not how our grandparents worked. Okay, I got a message from John Miner. One of my friends in Afghanistan, I assume Ranger Sergeant, issued his troops roofing hammers due to not being able to carry standard weapons at the time. They learned to throw and use them for defense. Okay, a roofing hammer, for people who don't know, is basically, if you take this, flatten it a bit, and put a hammerhead here. Eastwing makes it expensive but beautiful. They have a little bit of a notch both for pull and they can catch, and they are some of the most effective light tomahawk style tools you can acquire for relatively cheap. And absolutely, I mean, you guys have to learn to think outside the box. Now, where am I going with this? Our good friend Camppad, which is just out of reach, and I don't feel like zipping off camera right now. I have what I lovingly call my obesity armor. My obesity armor is a blue thermal insulated hoodie. and the white thermal fabric separated from the outer regular fabric about the time I was making a custom Plastidip shield for a friend. So I had this circle of foam, and I had a hoodie, and I was able to simply shove the foam in. And while it's not perfect, and I'm going to revisit and probably do a new version of that, I had at essentially no cost. Oh, Mason's hammer would work very well, but I had a no cost plastron type. It gave padded protection to my chest when I didn't have anything else, and I could then throw my plastron over it. It was essentially the start of a gambeson. I will be revisiting that concept of a project very soon, because basically we are all waiting in the world where I live. You have two dead zones of activity. You have the extreme winter. Oh, that's a delightful question. So I will get to that, Cindy. With the extreme winter where you can't do a lot because it's simply too cold, and the extreme summer where it's just so hot and sweaty it's dangerous for me to do so. I'm coming out of that into fall or autumn, which is my favorite season. I adore it. Leading up to Halloween, which is my favorite holiday. I also adore that. For productivity, things just happen. That means it's cool enough. I can get coals going. I can possibly forge. A lot could happen. Sydney kept asking, what is the advantage, disadvantage of a curved sword, scimitar, saber? Well, a curved sword has a lot of advantages. And let me see. Do I have anything handy to simulate? Okay, I don't. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the kukri backwards for now. Because I don't have a good, gentle, curved weapon up here. Like the questions, similar to katana. Well, yeah. One of the primary things of a curved sword people have to understand is the ease of a draw. That's why kukri is such a strange weapon, and ironically for me to grab, because body mechanics mean you can draw this. Now, when you are fighting against an unarmored or soft armored opponent, being fabric, padded gambeson, leather, you want a slicing motion. Okay? That's going to cut more often than you might not, even a pierce might not work as easily, especially if you're in combat with multiple opponents. Why not? Well, you see, stabbing, pardon me, stabbing is probably my favorite way of sword fighting. Obviously, I'm a fencer. But there is this chance of entanglement, and you always have to think of working fast, working through. A curved sword gives you a lot of power. It also allows a drag, so you don't. When I hit something with, let me find something that's straight, but of this. Okay, here we go. I can fit these guys on camera. When I hit somebody with a straight sword, boom, and usually it's a rebound, so it's a chop. Even if I pass through, look at the area that goes, right? Now, if I take a curved weapon, again, I mean, now you saw the area it hits and it draws. So instead of a short area of contact, you have this long, drawn-out wound channel. Think in terms of firearms. The firearm, even if it doesn't go as deep, so something that punches through very fast, like a 308 or even a 9mm, going very fast is going to put a very narrow, usually. We're not talking fancy heads. We're talking just lead here. Nothing, because Hydroshock and expansion, that gets different, but makes a wound channel like a thrust. But when you have something that transfers the force and it opens up a larger wound channel, it does more damage. That's why 45 makes a big gaping middle hole. Well, this is kind of a similar concept, because instead of because as soon as it slides, it loses effectiveness. This is not nearly as smooth and effective at slicing meat as that. That opens it up, and it opens up armor, even if it does it against fabric armor, against light armor, against skin. It's going to slice the armor open, leaving it more vulnerable. A cut follows through. This gives you options. As I said, it draws easier, and that gets very important on horseback, because if you're sitting, you don't have the mechanics to get unless you have a sharp curve. That's why cavalry sabers tended to be more sharply curved than infantry sabers. The other thing, and it gets interesting that John brings up the katana. There is a misconception that I hate the katana, and that simply isn't true. It is not that I hate the katana. I believe the katana is a heck of a bastard sword. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to mention how well it would cut Kevlar, lest people think that by mentioning how well it would cut Kevlar, I am supporting things for modern use, and I don't cross into the political field of such, John. That's why I don't talk about the effectiveness of broadheads or knives against soft armor like Kevlar. It's a whole different ballpark. 1 second. Things about katanas. Katanas are wonderful representations of the mentality and where they are. Believe it or not, a katana is the most elegant form of making do that I can think of. Japan is an island nation, limited resources, and the iron deposits and the iron sands that were available. Well, they have a term, and it starts with a tsu, and I can't remember it. I actually heard a company try to brag about it. The problem is, it's crud, okay? They have very contaminated, very nasty. The raw iron is just horrible to work with. Has a lot of flaws, a lot of conclusions, a lot of problems. So what they developed was the Japanese folding method that takes the steel, folds it, squeezes out the contaminants to purify, you bang it off, and it goes. And you do this. It makes a crystalline metal structure. It can hold an edge and be very, very sharp. But it comes at a price of being less flexible than better steels and more brittle. So you have an incredibly, you have a steel that if you forge it straight like the gin, because shockingly, Chinese and Japanese culture had a lot of overlap in development, it doesn't flex nice. So you need a weapon that isn't going to do a lot of flexing along its length, okay? This is how you would break a katana, okay? This is like the weakest axis. So what do? Well, part of it is you develop a style that uses its strengths while whenever possible negating its weaknesses. Your draw cuts, a katana is a very fluid, very drawing style, because one day we're competing against, well, there was some really neat laminated paper armor, which does sound silly, but it's effective. But a lot of fabric armor, a lot of linen type stuff. This and simply unarmored opponents. So that draw opens up shallow bleeding wounds, very effective. The thrust is still effective. The slight curve makes the draw easier for a longer weapon and aids in things like edge alignment. There's a lot of design things that go into the katana that make it one of the most popular swords in the world for good reason, and not just because samurai movies were cool. Ironically, you'll see many similar things in the Dao, in certain Dao designs, and in the Messer, because we all move at the same axis. Ergonomics overall, if human norm, you don't have defective ankles or something like I do, ergonomics are going to be effective. So that but it's elegant. And even the stab is just, when you're working with a katana, you're not doing a lot of straight stabbing. It doesn't make, there's a slight arc to the thrust to match the arc of the weapon to keep everything lined up. It's the idea of making sure, like when you throw a punch, this is all connected so that it lines up. Your knuckle bones are lined up with your wrist bones, with your forearm bones, and it connects. If you're here, you break your wrist or you damage your wrist. Same thing with a sword. So you have this very, in my mind, wonderful. My opinions on that weapon come not from it being the best, but being such an elegant answer to a simple and base problem of really cruddy steel. Now, because you take something like an Ulthbert, you take crucible steel. Yes, John, don't do what you do. Your joints won't hold up. John, you're a giant. We've assessed this. John's single fist is as wide as 8 of my finger knuckles. So if I went, to do a fist bump with John, literally, so that it parks just inside my pinky. It's like Peter Parker and the Hulk fist bumping. Really, it is, except now I'm fat. So, yes, beginning movements of 10 cuts. John, you should set up your own YouTube channel. You know what you're talking about. You can't get out to teach. You have the knowledge. You should write your book. Do a YouTube channel. Promote your book. I will put you in touch with people. Because you're reaching the age, John, and you guys are going to hear me lay into my friends. I do this, where John is of retirement age. I won't give details of specifics because, but he is an older gentleman. Now, he can do bad things to you and probably will be able to for some time, but he is borderline of giantism and a large guy. So you're in Pennsylvania now. Cool. There is a responsibility to write down and share what you know and pass it on. You've passed it on in person wonderfully over the years. And even though you haven't been recognized in some aspects of the society for doing it, I will recognize it. I learned a lot from you. We had a lot of great exchanges. It was a wonderful time of my life. Because I think you were one of the first real people I came to. Like, this is what I know. And I knew basic fencing, and I knew it well, because that's what I do. And John knew a lot of things. And from there, we could, work how to combine our approaches to make this work. It was a discussion. And that sort of has been something I've chased for years. It's a very important to my mentality, that physical conversation. So, John, you really, it's on you, man. You got to write your manual, and you need to get doing things, because that knowledge, tragically, you like Steve are not immortal, contrary to your popular beliefs. And if either of you have achieved immortality and other upgrades and not let me know, I will be most disappointed in you. But to make a curved sword, I find it usually needs to be a bit thicker because it's going to be a chopping weapon. The point of balance requires a bit more strength, and the motions tend to be much larger. They're gross motor motions, big swooshy guys. Now, there are delicate, shady things you can do with a curved sword, which is part of why in Western culture they're considered sinister weapons. This goes all the way back to Saladin and company, having curved swords as part of their horsemanship, Eastern and Middle Eastern tradition, versus the traditionally straight swords of the Crusaders. It's a very fascinating subject, and I think that overlap will do a lot to help that understanding, because you have to look at what it means. Now, granted, with a curved sword, you can adjust the point of your attack and come at very strange angles if you know how to do it. And I have fought against and with curved rapiers to surprising effect. But I think the mechanics of a straight sword are simpler to learn, and a straight sword I find is easier to teach to a smaller uh, student. And remember, most of the people who I train with are female or have physical disabilities. So they usually have less grip strength and less overall upper body strength. And that's not a shot, that's anatomy. That's not bashing anybody. Because I have poor grip strength and low upper body. That's why I love something like this, a light, fast sword. Now, when you're smart, heavy, and curved, very sharp and wide point for the. You'll see, and that's the thing. When you make a heavy curved sword, you can't go. I'm waiting for that pill to kick in. The a Spartan sword, heavy and curved, but tip heavy for the. See, yeah, that's the thing. If you make it tip heavy to get the power in the cut, which is a beautiful thing, you can both cleave through things. You get something like this simplified. Oh yes. Now I've talked many times about the ligaments in a lady's wrist that allow for things like the essentially the wrap shot and a few other things that the Armored Rose. I always lose the author's name, and that's not a discredit to her. That's a discredit to my memory. But the Armored Rose was written by a female knight in the SCA, and it is still, to me, the definitive female training manual. Like, for understanding the difference in body techniques, it's really great. I'm thinking I need to order another copy and possibly do a review, because it's just that good a work. I know John's seen it. I just can't remember who wrote the dang thing, and if I holler for Mandy, I'll get in trouble. Low center, yes, shorter folks can switch directions faster. It is possible to be short and strong, and then leverage does some really devastating things. And the evasion abilities are usually higher in somebody who's lighter and smaller, and you have to play to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. So that's why when I fence somebody who is much stronger than me, as Professor, oh god, I lost his name. Anyway, I refuse the blade. Okay, what that means is tacto is. Let me get something to visualize, because tacto, blade on blade. You guys, when you haven't been fighting a lot, especially haven't been fencing, tacto. Peter, yes, Professor Van Dorn, thank you, taught me to. Well, he didn't teach me. He recognized that what I do right is I refuse the blade. When I'm fighting somebody, I don't like tacto. I don't like blade to blade, because I know my wrists are relatively weak. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time playing leverage games. I just get out. And that's what I teach, because, again, most of my students tend towards certain body. Now, when I'm teaching somebody who's taller or strong, I don't think it wasn't Lady Fern. It's not Sir Lady Fern. I know that, because that's the Cheshire Cattle Seer 6 Ratio 35. I'll ask later. I've mentioned it. I may just have to buy another copy of that dang book. I'll see how the guild coffers are, because Mandy had a copy and it got lost in the move, and having two copies. Toby Beck, thank you, Cindy. If you haven't bought that book, please buy that book. As a writer and as a martial artist yourself, and obviously as somebody who works with females, and Toby Beck, I really am horrible with names. It's part of my whole persona of being an absent-minded Nick. But it even has, like, the pictures will flip. And one thing I really like is the way in that book she's depicted. She's wearing a black bodysuit, essentially. It's like black leggings and a black fitted shirt of some sort. But she took whiter reflective tape and showed where her pivot points, where her center line is. And it's really, really uh, interesting to see it, because she poses with her husband, and you'll see the dramatic difference in their relative position, how their bodies move when they do things. It's part of what inspired me to put the stick figures in the simple sword, because it was so much. It pulls away the distraction and just gives you the raw information. It's a fascinating technique. It's a great book, and again, I really talk because I know so many armorers, or I used to, who struggle with females, because to armor a woman, it is different. And I'm not talking that chainmail bikini crud. I'm talking actual armoring. A woman's waist rotates differently. At one point, I had designed these for my wife, and I have the designs floating somewhere, and they're also in my head, that were articulated, because the muscles on the side of a woman's knees move differently, and when they compress, like they're kneeling, they actually push out the sides. So, especially on a larger lady, there can be a tremendous difference from the knee standing to the knee out. So it has to be articulated. At the problems, and low center of gravity, understanding that the articulation in the hips has to be different, because the hips are higher and more um they move on this axis. They tilt more as a woman's locomotion works than as most men's. Now, I know it's funny how many women I know who've been involved with martial arts taught themselves to try to walk like a man against their body mechanics. And what's worse is the ones who taught, had to teach themselves to grip and make these fists, because this is the right way. And the female fist, as I can say, you got fists. There we go. Fists. I'm a strange fella. I have a left-handed male fist and a right-handed female fist. That's just there's 5% of men have female fists, 5% of women have the male brick. This is the fist you would see. I mean, it's a punchy version, I will admit, in comic books, that block. Now, a woman's fist isn't. That front knuckle almost always leads. What does that mean? Well, and I don't have the knife to show you, but if I grip this knife here, comfortable grip, locked in, and then I have to tilt it, not adjusting the wrist at all, comfortable grip, locked in. Locked in, locked in. That is a dramatic difference. And this wrist is straight, because I've had people, oh, you're doing games. Nope. So literally, for me, my fighting style, not only am I a two-handed fighter, but I fight two different fighting styles, if only because of the positioning of my wrist. Fun stuff. So, read Tony Beck's book, buy Tony Beck's book, and talk about it with your friends, especially female fighters. Again, make sure the weapons you choose fit your hand, they fit your body, they do what you want, and never be afraid to modify things. We have this mythos of, if it's bought, it's right, and that's just not necessarily true. It's a very American mass production ideal, and it's almost inflicted on poor. I think it's a way of stealing capacity from the poor people, because someone can have skills and be not terribly wealthy, and they can produce things better than mass production, at a slower rate by doing it themselves, but you can't market that. And I'm going to tell you a terrible secret. Not every skill needs to be marketable. Okay? You don't have to be practical. You don't even have to be good at every skill. That doesn't negate the value of the skill. And it doesn't negate the value. What if it works for you? They're saying if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. There's and a lot of that. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I was prattling. John says, had the problems with the madness armor. Male armor must be modified for the female to be effective. And I'm going to tell you, I despise boob armor. Okay. Now, it is okay to make armor that accommodates the breast area on a woman. You should, obviously, because it shouldn't be shoved into the armpits, because that impedes their ability to move their arms. It impedes their ability to do things that can have health ramifications. But if you have a molded breastplate and you don't have padding right over the sternum, which naturally has very little padding, and the armor, where is all the force going to go? Because that armor is going to move around as a unit around you, no matter what happens, no matter how good or fitted it is. It's going to move like a bell. So you always want, wherever it's going to impact, if you think of armor like a bell, wherever it's the clapper would hit the bell, should be padded. So I don't like that. And again, I will take this as an opportunity to remind, do not, under any circumstances, as a woman, purchase the disc-style breast protectors. Always buy one piece. Because I have seen cases where the armor flexed, it made a scissor motion, and flesh got in there. Please take that serious. And that's part of it. We need to take armoring serious. But at the same time, it doesn't need to be production. It doesn't need to be mass produced, and it doesn't have to happen fast. It is okay to make things. Take your time making them, even if it's not masterful. If it just takes you that time, it is better to take your time and make something than not have something. And it's better to have something that isn't as good as something that you could theoretically afford. We don't live in an all or nothing mentality. Make something that you can trade with. Tweak it. Tinker. Take two to commit. Sorry, John. You either Takato time or either you type something in a foreign language, which is possible with you, or you type so fast. So I'm going to assume it's take your time. And don't be afraid to. Now, we are at an hour, so I'm going to take a brief moment. We're past the first hour. I do about 2 hours of video. I want to shout out again to my patrons, including the amazing Cindy Kep, who is a wonderful author. And Cindy, please put the link to your website in there. This is just me being courteous. I respect her off the field as an author, and having seen some of her work, she's impressive, so look that up. She's one of my patrons. Steve Augusto is one of my patrons. He's been there for me for years. And I want to mention Steve Clausen, who has been supporting and trying to get me to do the projects. If you want to see me do the improvised weapons class, you pretty much have Steve to thank, because he doesn't give me much leave. And shout out to Ren Contessa, as always, wherever she is and however she's doing. But sorry, that's just killing me. We've talked about that. I need to know what you guys want to see on the channel, because like I said, we've worked mostly through the book. I can go back to the beginning, start over. I can go over more concepts from the the Strong Sword, which is the sequel I'm tinkering with. I need to know the prequel, and what most of the material I discuss can be found in the Simple Sword. Please buy this. I keep this as cheap as humanly possible, in part because I want a paperback around in case the web stops working. I want people to have access to a primer. Okay, that's what this is. This is a primer. This is not. This holds. How many times have you seen this? This holds the historical secrets of, how to the lost ancient art of hard to pronounceable, and then they throw out some Italian at you to sound spanky, or Japanese or Chinese. They throw fancy terms because it sounds impressive, but it's just a straight punch or it's just a cleave. In here, you'll find plain English, stick figures, and a great guide to get you started. Because I don't claim to make masters out of people. I claim to my mission is to get people on the road. Where they go once they get there is on them. So, I've been just rolling today. And yeah, in this age of Corona, having a runny nose is terrifying. And yes, I am sweating, but that's because I'm in the hottest room in the house, and to keep the noise out, I have to close the door to the air conditioning. And I have to keep my fan at an absolute minimum, or else it sounds like dust-off is going on. And, Ernest Borgnine and Jan Michael St. Vincent are going to come in with Airwolf and bring the lady down. But, wow, that's 2 80 shows referenced in one video, folks. I'm on a roll. All I have to do is bring up Dirk Benedict at Starbucks, and we're hitting like a trifecta. Anyhow, yeah, I'm in a mood. The projects that are coming up, I will be making the rest of the trainers hopefully this weekend. I have in the can 2 videos on neck knife reviews for you, my loving viewers. They just have to be tinkered. Woo! Got a woohoo from Sydney Cap. I'm not sure what you're woohooing, but I admire your enthusiasm. Probably the 80s remarks. But wow. So as soon as I can get them edited, we will be able to have some more neck knife reviews, because I kept getting messages of hey, you're the neck knife guy, to which I am. Yes, you're the neck knife guy. What neck knife should I buy? Okay, we'll work on that. Long story short, I'm rather fond of this. It's still a little alien compared to my old spear point, but this is a neat knife, and it is still scary sharp. So, neck knives. Everyone should carry one. I don't usually say hard lines, everyone things, but I can't see a situation where having a neck knife is not right and just, except, where you can't have knives or something like that. But I have a silly idea that the Constitution matters, and that's not terribly popular these days on either side of the board. But needed to sit up a second, and I need something to prop, so I went for the nearest cane, being the Happy Mermaid cane. There are some new products coming out, like I mentioned very early. For the gamers, I think you might want to look up something called Hellish Court. And if I can find a link, I'll throw it in. If not, just search it. It really looks interesting. Get stuck up on the body. I might. Okay, John put to fit it. Don't get stuck up on the body. I try to make the female comfortable in the state. Must be. Okay, not be. Okay, but it must be fit so the body's down. What John Miner is talking about is something that is really hard for an armorer. Okay, in that, if you are custom armoring a lady, occasionally you have to check physically. You have to touch. This is one of the. He stumbled into a great point that I can go off on. Teaching somebody to sword fight does occasionally require what we call in therapeutic circles hand over hand. Sometimes the simplest way is to simply touch somebody to guide how they're doing stuff move things. Now, this obviously in this environment where both people have abused such things and people have been abused and then people have used other things, it is very much a matter of communication. So when you are training someone, you need to be comfortable with contacting them and understanding there's no sexuality in it, and discussing at all times whether they feel their sexuality involved, if they're uncomfortable. And, consent is king in all things. Consent, believe it or not, is the concept that our nation is built on. I do not consent for you to tax me without representation. That's an issue of consent. I don't consent for somebody to touch me that I don't want to touch me, or how. So there has to be upright communication, and everything has to be above board. This is why I very rarely train people alone, unless they're very comfortable and they understand the steps, and I've come to trust them explicitly. I want, for my protection as an instructor and for their safety, everybody to see I'm not doing anything. Nothing weird is happening. I'm a big fan of recording both practices and training sessions, and this is just good. This is good policy. This is good. When I talk about a tactical mind negates threats, and that threat can be, the threat of a misunderstanding. It can be the threat of legal action. It can be the threat of social awkwardness. You have to always, always, always be thinking, not just in, are they trying to hit me? Because like I said, I've been told I'm a bit of a coward when I talk about self-defense, because I want you to run. I want you to get out every time. Unless there is an absolute need. You only fight for one of two reasons should you ever engage the enemy. You have overwhelming odds or no other option. That's it. That's in self-defense. That's in life. Don't engage in fair fights. A fair fight is a fight you can lose. Wow, that's no. You want to spar. We're not fighting, okay? And that's one thing people in groups lose track of. They get passionate. I want to beat you on. Even the most intense MMA, that's a bout. And they're doing damage to each other. They could hurt each other, but it's a supervised, organized bout. That is not a fight. A fight is someone is trying to hurt or kill someone else, maim, injure, horrific things. It is ugly. It is bloody. There is, there are, no holds barred is a real concept, folks. But my goal, like my goal is to go to bed with the same number of holes in me I had. To go to bed, I want to sleep at home next to my wife, my goofy breathing machine whistling and making noise, hearing my son make noise in the middle of the night, the usual. I don't want to sleep in a jail cell. That's still a threat. So if I have to defend myself, I have to remember to stop as soon as that first threat is neutralized. If I can escape, even if it looks cowardly, doesn't matter. I have a legal and I feel a moral to get out of there. That's the same kind of concept, because the next threat is legal ramifications. That's a viable threat. When you're training people, you're still thinking about that. You're working with a new person. You don't want to get hurt physically. You don't want to get hurt legally. That's why you have things like waivers and video. And you don't want any misconception. Now, yeah, there are pervo schizoids out there. And I don't know if schizoid is a proper term, but I would lay money. I could, the context clue of me saying schizoid, to define this. And I have met them, the kind of guy who I'm teaching women to sort of find as an excuse to try to sleep with them and feel them up. I've seen these guys. There were some very prominent schizoids in the groups I've been in. Part of why I left. So don't be a schizoid. and don't put yourself in a situation to look like a schizoid. And as I've learned, avoid people who will help try to put you in a position where you look like you're a schizoid. Because it's very easy to not do anything wrong, but be put in a position where you look like you're doing something wrong. And I think that actually has validity. It's not, and that's not bashing any side of things. That's just a form of tactical awareness. Because believe it or not, slowing down when you think a cop is around is tactical awareness. Truth. Wow. A good friend, Steve Clausen, comes running from the back with a truth and a shank. And that's beautiful. You have to think tactically. And the neat thing is it doesn't turn off. When I train people, I encourage them to think tactically on the field. That's where you practice it. The application isn't SCA bouts, it isn't HEBA bouts, it isn't at historical fencing guild bouts. The application is when you walk out and you go to Walmart, or you're wandering Chicago. You should have the tactical, situational awareness, tactical sense, logic. These things are the mightiest tools in your arsenal because they will defeat problems before they happen. And you listen to it. Well, I need to go somewhere and I'm running late. I'll cut down Crime Alley. Stop. Like I want just like an image of Samuel L. Jackson. Wait, coming in. Stop. Are you about to do something stupid? I'm about to sound vaguely racial. Guys, don't be the white dude in a horror movie. Yes, I had to freeze out of raw anger. Oh, power's out. I'll go check the generator. Wait. Didn't they just say there was a psycho killer? Yeah, I'll go check. No, two-man group. What? Both of us have lights. Both of us are as armed as we can. Get down. Yes. Cindy Kemp says, pay attention to the weird feeling that warns you of issues you aren't aware of. Couple things are going on. They actually have found out that the complex nerve clusters in your gut and digestive system function neurologically. It's a new anatomical system that they're realizing is there. That's why when you feel danger, that whole I feel something wrong in my gut, it's because your gut mechanically is where a part of you tracks. That's where the back of your mind, like your subconscious, is going, there's something wrong, and your conscious might not realize it. So you have to listen for that. That lizard brain, you ever get the tingle on the back of your neck? That's the oldest part of your brain. That's the primal fight or flight going, oi, face. Don't go down the dark alley. Hey, let's not go in the room full of chains hanging down. Nope. Nope is a verb. I noped right out. And if people go, you're a coward. I am avoidable conflict, avoidable damage. You bet. I'm just mosey my fat self right off screen. Now, if it's not avoidable, I've run in and grabbed flaming objects. That's less fun. Well, guess what, Steve? If you want to be less fun, that's fine. But my job is not to train people to be super Steve, secret squirrel, crazy MFers. I have people like you. I have people like John. I have agencies and corporations who will do that. My job is to get people to go, you know what? That's dumb. Because the world doesn't teach common sense. And if you're not going to if it's not going to be taught, somebody has to go, wait a second, guys. Don't, a man has got to know his limitations. It's one of those concepts that I've always hated because I believe in building past. But to get past my limitation, first off, I have to know what's there. Common sense, you know what? Cindy Kemp says common sense is a superpower. You bet. You guys don't understand. We're all spidey if we pay attention. Oh, my common sense is tingling. Yeah, and it's funny because we don't understand in part like the function of scary stories. Do you know what the function of scary stories, when they were originally told all the way up to now, is? It's like, oh, that's to scare and entertain. Oh yeah, entertain is part of it. Scare is part of it. Excuse me. I'm so sorry to be doing that on camera, but I can't breathe. Scary stories, scary movies, all exist to teach us, one, let us practice what it feels like to be scared. It literally is swimming in a shallow water. Oh, I'm watching a scary movie. So you get practice. You know what your body feels like when you have a jump, when you have anxiety, right? Higher blood pressure, situational awareness gets dialed up. Ding, 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 ding. It's part of. Some people get addicted to the endorphins. That's why they love scary movies. But it also teaches you when something goes on. The other thing is the reason tropes exist in a certain sense is because those tropes exist in nature. What? The predator who's coming for you. Because guess what? As soon as the lights go out, despite man's supposed domination of the world, things will try to eat you. Okay? And I'm not talking supernatural. Someday, maybe I'll do a whole video on my view on supernatural things. But we're talking just natural. You go out in the woods, maybe you should avoid the dark shadows. Why? Because if I were a cougar, a bear, a wolf, a predatory anything, I want to be where I can see my prey and my prey can't see me. You have to think like a bad guy. And it's like, whoa, something, you watch movies and something jumped out of the shadows and tried to eat my face. You learn to be careful around shadows. That is why we've been telling stories since it was around the campfires that actually kept the things away at night. And that's part of what you need to do. I love mental simulations. Oh, okay. John piped in. Being an EMT has given me regard for others' sensitivities. Even guys get angsty about being touched. And he mentions somebody. I'm not going to drop names. I know a lot of men who are uncomfortable about being touched. Part of it is homophobia. Part of it is having endured violence. And part of it is there needs to be a word, okay, for being afraid of being perceived as sexual. Excuse me. It's not like being homophobia is not being afraid of being gay, but it needs to be a term for being afraid of having the ramifications of being gay socially, whether you're gay or not. That concept doesn't have a word that I know of. And if there is someone, please tell it to me. Because that's a very important sociological concept that doesn't seem to get discussed. But John says, but then again, fitting must take place or the armor bites happen. Absolutely. What John's talking about in armor bites is if plates aren't fit right, if belts don't sit right, there'll be pinches, there'll be bruises. You'll have marks, you have cuts. This is why you should not get an armor you think that fits and go fight in it. At least not full speed. The best way is do your absolute best to fit something. Then you go to just slow motion because you'll move and go, you're asking Taylor, the chest gets tight when I do this. Or, there's a snag in the shoulder when I try to extend my arm, especially if I rotate. And then you work from that. Armoring is tailoring. And that's how it's going to be. Now, if you're buying off-the-rack armor, which a lot of people do, you have to be careful. It's harder to tailor. It can be done, and that's a skill set that needs to be cultivated. Arms and armor interlock into defensive systems. Okay? And that all has to be tried too. Because when I'm like what I'm fighting, guys, you'll see me fight. Whoop, that's gonna fall. Anyway, with this. Okay? If I'm fighting with this, I picked this and I talked about the design because a hockey gaunt finger will fit through here. Okay? That's why this hole is so big. It's not sized for a leather glove finger. It's not sized for a, it fits. That's why this is so big, because you can put even if my hand were, if we're small, a gauntlet, a clamshell. That's the word. Sorry, I lost it for a second. I might be able to grab it like this, but I wouldn't be able to use the keyhole grip. So you have to make sure, like, there are some weapons, when I fight them, I use just light armored gloves because they have more protection I need to fit. There are other weapons I fight, like if I'm fighting an open shafted weapon like a glaive, a spear, something that doesn't have much or any guard, you need a much stronger armored hand protection to offset that. Likewise, if I'm swinging, do I have that out here? I'm sure I do. But a basket hilt, so if I'm swinging something like this, I have a lot more hand protection, so I don't need it in the glove as much. And all this, it's like, if you're going to run a D&D game, you have to have a session 0. You don't try to create a character and immediately game. It takes a lot of time. It can be difficult. What you want to do is, if possible, create the characters ahead of time. That way the DM knows what he's dealing with. Same kind of concept happens when you're fighting. Figure out what weapon you want to fight or what armor you want to use. And then you need to tailor the other to it. So if I want to fight this, I know I need good, solid hand protection on the back. I need fingertip protection. Okay? This part's going to get hit right here, and brother, does that hurt. Okay, but I don't necessarily need the heavy because I have a solid guard. This is much more open. That means that needs to be bulkier because I'm going to get sniped in the hand. And the other thing you need to realize is armor, and it upsizes your hitbox. In video game terms, the hitbox is how much space you can be to hit a character. A lot of times it doesn't fit exactly, That's the concept that a bigger guy is a bigger target. Well, when you're wearing your Hulk hand armor, you have to realize that hand now is a bigger target. And depending on your conventions, your rules of play, that bigger armor also is going to make it easier for people to hit and score against you in the gamesmanship side of what we do. So it's always a balance. I like to tell people, I got a lot in common with Zoe. I like a little slink in my gear. I don't want to clank around. It's not comfortable for me, and it's more interaction. But now, as I've aged and I've acquired damages, I have to think in terms of armor from the skin out. What do I mean? Okay, if you're armoring from the skin out as a guy, you're going to want the, I find the jockstrap style cup supporter is useless. It's like, oh, you're being open. Yeah, I'm being open. It's armor. It keeps my dangly bits. Far rather have the compression short style because it keeps that gap from widening. I used to fence with somebody who had specialized the art of a 1-2 where a shot hits the armor and moves the cup aside and they can get under it. It was underhanded. I know why she developed it, but you want to address that. I'm a big fan of heat wicking gear. Under Armour, bootleg Under Armour, something that's going to pull the heat off of you. Now you have to go the next layer. Do you need any supports? Most days, I used to wear a wrist brace everywhere. When I'm fighting, I usually wear a wrist brace just to safety. If you pay attention, a lot of even these videos, I still have my back brace. My back is damaged, so I'll wear a back brace, knee braces as needed, things like this. That's because I've acquired a lot of damage. So you have that. Oh, and one of the groups had somewhat tried to argue that smacks on the face masks didn't count because it was 200. Yeah, absolutely. Cindy kept said in one of the groups I played with, someone tried to argue that smacks on his mask didn't count because the mask was 2 inches wider than his head. He was not successful. And you know what? Here's a horrible thing. If you trade with a larger hitbox than you actually have, and you ever have to engage someone without your armor, the benefit you gain from that is you have an integrated margin of error of where you think you'll be hit versus where you'll actually be hit. And really narrow. It is amazing how much the minimalist little movements can have maximized effects. John Miner says, if you have time, tailor your weapon to your opponent and situation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Understanding your opponent and how to fight them and understanding your approach greatly affects your odds of success. There are two basic styles. I believe they root. So the first thing you do is learn your primary style. Learn it well. Okay? Find the style that works best with you and know it inside and out. And then learn different styles beyond that you can fall into should you need to fight somebody that they counter at different approaches. By styles, I don't just mean weapon selection. I mean, are you fighting aggressive? Are you fighting passive? Are you, one thing, if they want to circle, you want to square it off. If they want to fight very linear, you want to circle. You always want to, if you have the capacity, oppose the comfortable style of your opponent. And that's tailoring your mental armor as much as you tailor your physical armor. Like, if I know I'm fighting, sparring with somebody, and we're going to say sparring in this case, who's, heavy fighter, like if I'm fighting John and he's fighting a concussive weapon, something like an axe, you bet I want Hulkbuster, Tony Stark, my man. You don't go against the Hulk in your light, stealthy armor that has no weapons. No, you get the Hulkbuster out so you have enough padding and enough muscle to do the job. Same idea. Is he better in the armor under normal circumstances? Sure, he's better in his regular armor. In a Hulk situation, you want Hulkbuster. That spirit, that mentality is key for survival and winning, especially in gamesmanship. But when you're looking real world and you're looking, a lot of times we see these things. What should adventurers carry? What kind of weapons should they carry? And I get a lot of flack because I'm very particular on keeping my weapons to a medium, not large size. And that's because adventurers tend to get in small places. Now, unless you have something where you can negate temporarily or permanently the size of a weapon for mobility, it doesn't make sense. You don't want to walk into a goblin cave with a halberd, okay? Let's see. I learned defense ambidextrous so I can switch hands without loss of skill. It also helped vendors. Absolutely. I train everybody to be ambidextrous, and I train everybody to build that up from the get-go. John also put aware of field conditions. What are the conditions? Absolutely. I have a fairly legendary weapons lecture. I kind of, one of my go-to. It's almost a sermon because I get kind of reverendy sometimes. The Lord said, if you don't keep your guard up, you will be smitten. But knowing your battlefield is as important as knowing your opponent and where you are. I'm a big prescriber to, if I have enough time in a battlefield of my choosing, I can win any situation. We're all understanding that victory conditions are something that we define. What are the opponents in the changing? A battlefield. You look at things like the Battle of Hastings, where rain and a muddy condition greatly shifted the battlefield itself from what it looked like it should be to what it was, where a larger force could get mired down in the muck and be vulnerable to a smaller, more mobile force. You have to be aware of all these things, and you have to think like that. And that's what's great about what we do, because what we learn, this mental flexibility of thinking in terms of, what are my surroundings, how are they useful, versus not doing that, it carries over so much into the survivability. There's one thing you can collect in this world, and I am we have to step back. There's a great argument between nerds. What is a nerd? What is a geek? And one of the better ones is a nerd is somebody who fixates on usually academic knowledge on any given subject. A geek is someone who collects items and pop culture things, is usually the thing. I am a geek of nerdly subjects. I collect skills. I collect abilities. Very low level. I'm a complete factotum by D&D terms. They kicked in. Terrain is one of the first things I consider when choreographing a fight scene. Absolutely. You set a stage before you put the players on it. I mean, that's basic theater concept. And with a fight especially, that's what it's going to be. Because a fight indoors by a stairway is totally different than, like John said, you can't swing a broadsword in the forest. That is an SCA thing involved with a song called Penzik Number 4 by Michael Longcore, a.k.a. Duke Sir, a whole bunch of things, Moonwolf. And I actually, if you go back in the channel a ways, you will hear me talking about, because I was in a rather interesting discussion with a prominent YouTuber on why I don't think longswords are the end-all, be-all for every character all the time. And it simply boiled down to, especially for adventures, you can't swing a broadsword when you're in the forest. You better have something short. So, if you want a broadsword, that's fine, but you better have one of these tucked in your belt somewhere. And you better be willing to switch out, like, nope, I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm right here, because I can do this in here. And my attitude is, I train with weapons that I can use anywhere, because I'd rather be 100% trained on what I'm doing than flirting around too much before I am established. Master your comfort of a style, move on. This is why when you're learning, you don't switch weapons till you're comfortable. And I know how this goes. I can take this. I know how long it is. I know how to make it go. That's fine. If I were training and I was beginning and this was my weapon, this is this is my rifle. There are many others like it, but this is my own. It will not function without me. I will not function without it. Yeah, well, and then strategies and tactics is what John Meyer's getting into again, and that's the strategies are long-term, broad, over what as I've said, my strategy I affectionately consider applying cowardice. That is what it is labeled. Overwhelming odds or no other choice. Seeking retreat whenever available, because that gives me the game I need in survival. A very cautious strategy. it won't necessarily, they say fortune favors the bold. It's true. But survival favors the cautious, and I will say that. Now that's right. Tactics are things like I keep my back to a wall when I'm out, or I lock the door. I wear a neck knife. These are tactics. Pocket sand is a tactic. Using underhanded techniques is a strategy. And understanding that don't be afraid to study. There's some really great guys, and we live in the age of the internet where classical knowledge can often and frequently be acquired for free. You can find a PDF of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Read it! Seriously, read it. The Five Rings by Musashi. Read it! Don't be afraid to study and then go what works. Now, you are also totally allowed to say, they said this, and I say, read between the lines. Okay, that's your right. You take what you want, disregard the levels. Keep on going. The world is like a buffet of knowledge. You take what you want, you disregard the rest, you keep going. If it doesn't work, you can always go back. If you live, you can come back and go, what did I do wrong? It's the whole, I went to the buffet. I don't know what that dish is. I'm going to try it. Oh, wow, that's spicy. 3 hours of stomach pain later. The next time I go to the buffet, do I pick that dish? No, I do something else. Learn from your mistakes. It's like, Nick, you equate a lot of things with food. Well, I'm a fat guy. What do you expect? Let's see. My phone shut down, so I have to check for any messages I've been getting. And let's see. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes, I did. I got a message asking me which neck knives I reviewed. Well, I did a long-term review, fairly long-term review on this, and this is the CRKT Gears Edition Minimalist Boy. Got the glow-in-the-dark handle and the happy little carves. I have to be very careful because this is scary sharp. I did a unboxing and initial review on the Sheffield Bolo, which, long story short, larger-handed people might like the cheaper option. I have something new supposedly inbound. I'm not sure when it's going to get here, but I'm going to do a review on that. And again, basically, the part of my Patreon is there so that I can afford to buy gear and to buy things to review. So when people want something reviewed, they can say, hey, you think you could review this? Now, if you are representing a company and you want me to review it, or you are financially able and you'd like a review of something, by all means, send it to me and I'll review it. If you're a producer, I will. Sun Tzu, no battle will be fought before strategies are planned. The tactics must be fluid during it. Exactly. Going back, strategy, because a lot of people, what's the difference between strategy and tactics? Strategy and tactics. The strategy for me is, a lot of very tactical awareness, avoiding bad situations. The tactic will shift as the situation evolves. So, normally I would not go down an alleyway as a rule. I don't like one entrance, one exit, anything. So cul-de-sac style places I don't like. Narrow places I don't like. I really hate places that are narrow but widened, because on the other side is where the bad guys should be. And I credit the bad guys with being smart. So, I would normally not go down there. But if I'm going down there and a car explodes off this side, you bet I'm going diametrically opposed, understanding that I may be walking into a less favorable situation. So I'm going in knowledgeable. I'm not going to walk blindly past where I think an ambush is. I'm going to peek. I'm going to check. Going to be careful. You have to flow. It's like, that's not even combat. No, it doesn't need to be. I am a failed pacifist. I, at a point in my life, wanted never to hurt anybody because I am something of an empath. I am a compassionate individual, and the idea of hurting somebody else hurts me. Okay? Now, that being said, I have had to apply violence. I have received violence. And I understand it may be necessary to defend myself or my family, because even if I don't like to value myself due to my own issues, I do realize my tactical benefit to my family or to the people I care about. So I can't let any doubt of my worth ever interfere with my function, because people need the function. And I tell them the truth. And the one thing it's like, put it this way. If I'm talking to somebody, I will tell them the bad news. Now, I may sometimes have to tell people bad news without being able to reveal my sources, because I won't. If I say, yeah, you have a confidence, I can't tell them that you said it. But I can say, look, you need to be ready. Some bad stuff might be coming down the pipe. Can you give me details? No. Because I have to keep both my oaths and do what I feel is morally necessary. It's complex. And that's where I live. That's part of my mentality. I care about people, and sometimes that means, like, telling somebody they have an addiction problem means they may hate you. I've lost friends. For example, I have notified the authorities about people who were suicidal and kept them busy while the authorities got there. That was duplicitous, because they would not have wanted the authorities there. But in that situation, they were in a position to do harm unto themselves. Had I not intervened, they would. Did they hate me for calling the cops? Absolutely. To this day, I'm hated by some people. And I live with that, because the juice was worth the squeeze to me. And sometimes I've had to do that. I've had to work around. I'm not going to compromise what I am or who I am for what I have to do. And if that means being hated for that, sometimes I have to accept that. And it's painful. I will tell you, there's almost nothing more painful to have somebody you've worked your ass off because you care about them, trying to help them. Look, you go, you're the bad guy. You did this. And it's even worse to say, yeah, okay, I did it. Even if you did it, sometimes they need that. Sometimes people need the bad guy. They need somebody to hate so that their life will be better. And it sucks. But I've done it. I've done it and done it and done it. And some people are alive that maybe wouldn't be. Some people are doing things they wouldn't have done otherwise. Because I had to balance not violating confidences with the necessities of the situation. And I run into that a lot. It's complex. And it isn't easy. A lot of people, well, you just there's a time to let it go. And the thing is, with me, if I let it go, I won't. I defend family. John Miner says, I defend family and extended family to a fault. I placed myself in danger to protect all of them. Yeah, okay. And I've been in that situation, but you also have to think of this tactically. The danger of the situation, is it worse than the danger of you not being there for them? And that's one that can be challenging for a lot of us. There's a saying, and it's a bit grim. I guess we're going down serious. There are a lot of people I'd die for. because there are a lot of people I would step in front of and take the hit. But there are a few people I live for. And I always, always, always look for the people you live for and do what's best by that. And that means you may be hated. Or you may, I've had people just believe monstrous things about me because at the time it was the only way to help them. It was the only way to keep them alive. I've made mistakes, sure, and I'm not happy with them, but you have to, and it's like, wow, how does this fit in with fencing? It's all bits of a simulation, guys. Fencing teaches spatial awareness, tactical awareness. And when I say fencing, I mean all this Western martial arts stuff I do. Okay, great swords, axes, improvised stuff. It teaches you awareness. It builds up physical condition. Sharpens the mind. It sharpens communication skills. So that in the reality, when things happen, it hits. It's the same reason I love running D&D games and tactics games. Because the simulation trains the brain to think, trains the mind to act, and act now. Bam, 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 bam. Respond, and respond properly, or not respond. And John says some are still here because exactly. Sometimes the hardest thing for somebody of a mentality kind of like mine is not to act. And I don't mean up front or even behind the scenes. It's to sit there knowing that somebody. I'm getting vaguely, not quite religious, but maybe spiritual. Lays back. I was having a conversation many years ago that we're talking about why they call God the Father, kind of thing, and it was the thing of sexism, and I said I don't believe it's a sexist thing because I think the concept of God is bigger than gender, bigger than I believe my term was celestial swinging meat because it's meat, but it's the role and the idea of a mom will almost always rush and catch their kid. If a kid's walking along a ledge where they can fall down and skin their knee, a mom will always run in there and reach. A dad oftentimes will reach a point where I have to not catch you. I have to know you're going to fall because it's the only way you're going to learn here so you don't fall later on something bigger. And so that you can function. That's incredibly painful to do. That concept of letting somebody, after you've advised them, suffer because one, they either won't listen or they can't. So all you have to do is stand there and watch. And it's cruel and it's painful, but it's necessary. As a sword master, as an instructor, I have to watch students lose. And sometimes, after you've corrected somebody enough, they have to go do something they think will work that won't work, so that they can see, wow, that didn't work. And if they're at all mature enough, they'll come back, that didn't work, did it? Nope. And maybe then they're ready to listen. And that's part of it. That's, people don't understand the layers of trying to do the right thing for people, knowing that I will never as a trainer do I'm going to kill you the same way. I don't. I have a 3-hit rule. If I can fight somebody and I can kill them the same way 3 times in a row, doing the same thing, after that 3rd time, I'm calling a hold and we're talking about how I beat them. Because that's what needs done. But will I let that 2nd time go through? Absolutely. Why? Because they need the opportunity to try and recognize it. The 3rd time, It's been 2 times. They have a shot now. They should know what's coming. They're dying. And if they don't see it, then it's time to stop, reset back, and say, okay, I'm killing you the same way. Now, that takes a lot of personal awareness because it's very easy to train somebody and fight with them and go, I killed you. I have no idea how I got there. And sometimes that will happen. But that's a fluke. If it's repeated, it's not a fluke. And if you guys can't figure out, then you've got to stop and slow-mo walk through what's been going on and figure out exactly how it's happening. That's a big part of training, and that's why training, when it's done right, isn't a lecture. Okay? There's a lecture part where this is what I teach. This is how it goes. We're going to see if it works for you. As soon as we cross we're going to see if it works for you, it becomes a discussion. So I'm going to do this. You're going to try what you want to do. Bam. Okay, did that work? That seemed to work. Cool. Let's keep doing that. Let's see if that works in that situation or it's a fluke. And you discuss the mechanics of the attack. This way, they learn how they fight, not how you're telling them to fight, because your way might not be the best for their physicality, or it may just not work. Because a wonderful example John will talk about. John wore big, clunky steel gauntlets, and he would do a punch parry on like a glaive shot where he could let go of the glaive, a glaive's coming down at him, punch the haft of the glaive, and do something else bad. Now, my beloved wife watched it, learned the move through observation. She's fighting and brought her hockey glove, did the same thing, and hurt her hand and shattered the plastic into the hockey glove because her body and her equipment weren't up to the style. That's why you have to learn. And that's why when you are teaching somebody, you need one teacher. Because what a lot of people won't see is there's a progression. Before I teach somebody how to do an elaborate shot, like a wrap shot, and a nice, we'll talk like John was talking, a nice combo, catch the shield, bring the smite down. Before they get anywhere near something complex like that, they have to learn how to stand. I'm not even talking moving. We go all the way back to how you stand. Are you stable? Is your base wide enough that you're not going to get knocked over? Are you... Yeah, John talked about being a father, and as a father, you have to allow heirs to learn the lesson. Even if a child student says, I hate you, I wish you were dead, this hurts, but on the topic of things like I hate you, I have worked with behavioral special needs. My son is behavioral. I have endured violence. It's of speech and action. I've come to a point in my life where threats hit strange in that I'm going to kick your ass. I don't know if you've ever had somebody big get mad. I'm going to kick your ass. This is how I am defeating what you are doing. Oh, yeah. No, that's how I teach it. Yeah. Well, after I've done it, I show them what I'm doing. And we go through. But getting back to what I was saying, they puff up. And I've reached a point in my life where I think of all the times I've been beaten. I mean, bad. There's a concept, and I call it the Waterloo effect. I got from my dad. That's, have you met a personal Waterloo? What do I mean by? This is a battle you can't win. You are completely and utterly defeated. You find the bottom of who you are. You've been weighed, measured, and found lacking, and you come out of that. And the people who've never experienced that have an untested fragility to me. You make a knife, you check the bend, you check the temper. If you don't check it, you don't know if it's solid. Koyabashi Maru, exactly. And that was the point of it, was to force them to face that. And right now, there are a lot of people in America who are going through a very long, very slow version of a Koyabashi Maru. Current events and things that may be coming are things that they've never had to deal with. They've never been that defeated. And there's get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. How many times are you can get up? One more. There is a horrible, powerful sense of defiance that can be learned by somebody who's been utterly destroyed and survived. Where you knock me down, I'm going to get up. The whole if I can't get up, I'm going to sit up. If I can't sit up, I'm going to crawl. And if I can't, I'll have somebody carry me. And the only way life develops that. And you want students at some point will all go through that. They'll think they know, they'll think they're untouchable. And if they haven't fit that, they'll find that. And I find there are people who come into what we do looking for that, I think. They don't know it. They want to be tested and they want to be pushed to their breaking point because sometimes that's the only place. Sometimes when you get your whole life gets taken away. Everything that seems like it matters, and you have to build back up again. Or for some of us, again, and you get knocked all the way back down the slope, you got to climb back up again. And there will come a point where the top stops feeling different than the bottom. And when you hit the climb is everything, things start to change. Things start to happen. And the hardest thing in the world for somebody who's endured that is to let somebody else endure that who hasn't. And I know people who are going through that right now, and I've advised them in the past. I've tried to help. And sometimes you just got to let them go. Knowing they hate you. Knowing that no matter what you have done, no matter how many years you've tried to help, they're going to despise you for their suffering. And maybe they're right. Because, yeah, maybe at points you could have waved the magic wand and short-term fixed it, but still would break. So you just you just have to stand there. And this is part of being a trainer. Watching your student fail helping somebody and watching them fail because they're going to, and it's beyond their control, is painful. Having them look at you failed me. And you have to go, maybe I did. Maybe I gave you everything I could and it was insufficient. That's my own version of another Koyabashi Maru. But if I try, and that's the thing, if I can look back and go, honestly, I put in the hours, put in the effort, I did everything to try to help. And they have to learn. And it hurts and it sucks. And you feel terrible. It feels like you're rolling in broken glass. Just being scraped apart. But then you have to walk away. And let them. And if they want you back, they want you back. If they don't, they don't. But that's part of it. Because we can't save everybody. And sometimes you got to try. And sometimes they got to, I don't know. Sorry, this hit some background stuff, and it hit hard. But that's the price of command. That's the price of you got to watch. At some point, you got to watch people go and watch them fail, fall, maybe even die. But if you have done everything in your power to help, you've done more than 99% of the people in the world. Because there are the vast majority of people in this world And I am optimistic to believe it's not that high, even though it feels that way. But they'll watch you burn for the entertainment value, and they won't try, they won't help. They'll just watch you burn. And then there are people who will honestly try and help, and I guarantee that at the end of the day, they're the ones who will get labeled as the bad guy because you did something. You broke the bystander field, uh, the bystander effect, where there's a fight going on. It doesn't involve you. You're part of the scenery. That person doesn't exist to the fighters because they're just watching. They're there, but they aren't there. Then they step forward and ping. They're now part of it. They've gone from neutral to engaged. We're seeing that. We're seeing that in civil unrest. We're seeing that in politics. We're seeing that in personal discussion. Slowly, the world, people are like a clutch, and the gears are just ratcheting into place to do something, something great. Be it wonderful or terrible, it would be a significant something is being built. And it's our job to figure out where our clutch point is and do that. This is, I use Western martial arts as part of my tools to do that. I help people. That's where my clutch point hits sometimes. And it's a bit philosophical, and it's a bit religious, and it's a bit physical, it's a bit a lot of things. And you got to find yours. And John Miner says, as a master teacher, what you know at the time, you teach what you know at the time. However, you're learning at the same time your students are teaching. Yeah. You want to learn a subject, and you really want to know it, teach it to somebody else. Because if you can't answer their questions, you got to go back and learn it yourself. You got to practice and you got to see it through somebody's struggling eyes. I believe there should be a law that all math teachers should, math should be taught by people who weren't initially good at it because they had to earn it. It was hard. Those were the best math teachers, in my experience. The guys who are just naturally mathematical usually aren't verbal enough to explain how to teach the mathematics. It's different halves of the brain. And I think there's a lot of things. I got where I was not because I was strong, because I wasn't. It wasn't because I was big, because I wasn't. I was fast at one point. I got where I am because I drilled every night. I drilled through pain and agony and physical therapy, and I worked and I studied and I read, and I just ground at it. Well, that's how I got where I am right now. My mind can do things my body can't. So I try to teach with my mind. And try to fix my body just a little longer, So that's what's up to you. And I know we kind of got philosophical, we got serious, and it got quiet. And I hope you guys don't mind that. I'm not always a dancing monkey over here. I know it's not always, my subjects aren't always chipper, and that's okay because it's important. I'm well past my 2-hour mark, and it is really, really hot in here. So what I'm going to say is thank you. I want to thank Cindy Kep and John Miner especially. We've had a really good conversation, guys, and I hope it was at least educational for you. I would love to hear people comment below. This is one of my off weeks. We did get a lot of people through, but I hope we did some good. Next, I'm hoping to have a lot more prompts and a lot more discussion points next week. I didn't expect to be working through, and thank you to Steve Clausen. Please hit the like button if you haven't, and feel free to comment, on what you say. Do you want more philosophical discussion? Do you want me to, Nick, put your soapbox away, pick up a sword, and go through the mechanics again? Tell me what you want, and I will give it to you. Cindy Kep says thanks for hosting. This is the only way I can serve right now. So and serving is what I do. So I am incredibly grateful to you, my viewers. I'm incredibly grateful to my friends and patrons. And so we're going to do the end of video plug. As always, this was brought to you by not the can that just went spiked. The Simple Sword by Nicholas Stockard. Available through Amazon, through my Patreon, which the link is buried in the gobbledygook at the bottom, and made possible by the wonderful commentary of my viewers. If you like what I'm doing, consider liking, share, subscribe, let folks know what's going on. Comment, even if you weren't part of this conversation. I love comments. I respond relatively quickly, and I try to respond to every single comment that comes through that's like serious. Once in a while we get a troll or we get something that doesn't belong, but most of the time it's intelligent conversation, and I value it highly. Please stay safe, be good to yourselves and each other, and as always, support your local swordmaster.